From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
How much is an old tractor worth? Machinery Pete with the story of one that helped plow a field of dreams. Reaction is pouring in after the pork industry suffers a major loss in a court battle over a California law.
How can they do that? That's California. If they want to do that in California, go ahead, fine.
As wheat soars and corn and soybeans sink after the release of the latest supply-demand report from USDA.
That was probably the shock of the marketplace.
What they're predicting for yields out of this year's crop, right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. USDA has high expectations for this year's crop, forecasting record yields for both corn and soybeans. The agency releasing new supply and demand numbers as we continue to roll through the planting season. It's still calling for 92 million acres of corn, now putting yields at 181.5 bushels to the acre and record production of 15.3 billion bushels. That's up more than 10% from last year. For soybeans, it's predicting 87.5 million acres, yielding 52 bushels an acre, another record high, and production of 4.5 billion bushels, up 5% from a year ago. Looking at all wheat, total planted acres at just under 50 million with yields of 44.7 bushels to the acre. Production coming in at 1.6 billion. That's up slightly from last year. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. And Michelle, the markets didn't respond favorably to the corn and soybean numbers.
Actually, Clinton, as bearish as the corn and soybeans number were, the market could certainly have been down more, but the market did sell off going in as traders were expecting a big hike in production. However, we did get a big changeover from the tighter old crop ending supplies versus much bigger new crop corn and soybean stocks. And the bullish surprise of the report, though, was the wheat and hard-red winter wheat production. With above average abandonment on HRW acres, farmers will harvest only 67% of planted area, the lowest ratio since 1917. USDA also lowered yield 1.8 bushels per acre from last year, putting the HRW crop at 514 million, down 16 million from last year. Total winter wheat production was down 100 million bushels from the estimate. And wheat ending stocks came in at 556 million bushels, down 42 million from last year, the lowest in 16 years. Market analysts say small crops generally get smaller.
That was probably the shock of the marketplace. I mean, I think the traders a little bit optimistic on the wheat crop. A lot of our clients said, hey, abandonment's high. This is a disaster. We've been hearing that. The USDA hadn't been reporting it. That number came in today. They're definitely showing it. And the market responded, accordingly and really kind of pushed higher in the wheat market, Michelle.
That provided some support to corn, but it was a very bearish report. With record yield and production, USDA bumped up ending stocks on corn to 2.22 billion bushels. That's up 805 million bushels from last year's drought-stricken crop and one of the biggest transitions between two crop years in history. McCormick says while prices held up after the report, it does imply lower prices ahead.
Right now, it's definitely, I would say, the most bearish number of the report, Michelle. There's no doubt about it. That number was way above the average trade estimate, and that's putting the ending stocks close to around a 15% stocks to use, up from roughly 10% this year. And, there's no doubt about it. If you're a producer, you got to be concerned about it.
For soybeans, the jump between old and new crop is much tighter, but USDA is still forecasting record production and higher ending stocks at 335 million bushels. Now that's well above estimates and up 130 million bushels from last year. McCormick says that implies sub-$12 prices for soybeans. And how did the market react? We'll have analysis coming up later in the newscast.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Let's dig in now to the ending stocks numbers, both old and new. Still in the bin for corn, 1.4 billion bushels, higher than what the trade expected. For new crop, it's calling for 2.22 billion bushels. Now for soybeans, 215 million bushels remain, with new crop bringing in 335 million bushels. Both corn and soybean new crop balance sheets higher than the trade expected. For wheat, a little lower than anticipated. Old crop at 598 million bushels, new crop at 556 million. Now that the Supreme Court has agreed to let California's Proposition 12 stand, when will it take effect for pork, and what could the future hold for the industry? Well, a California Superior Court judge in December extended a delay in enforcing the law depending on the outcome of the Supreme Court decision. In that ruling at the time, the judge said enforcement should not take place until July of this year, just 2 months away. Ag groups had argued if the California law was upheld, it would not be long before other states adopted separate requirements, making it more difficult for producers. Now, the National Pork Producers Council also noting that 99% of the pork sold in California is produced elsewhere, so the burden of the law would be largely felt by other states. MPPC issuing a statement after the ruling saying, quote, "We are still evaluating the court's full opinion to understand all the implications. MPPC will continue to fight for our nation's pork farmers and American families against misguided regulations." Eldon McAfee is an attorney and represents many of the major livestock groups in Iowa, including pork producers. Now, he says some producers, if required to change their operations, may simply decide to quit, while others will do it for a price, adding, ultimately, the Supreme Court put the burden back on Congress.
Not a surprise, but the court, in one of its sections of its decision that 3 justices joined in on, said that, hey, this isn't anything the court should be doing. We shouldn't be the ones, getting into all this. This is a legislative matter. This is for the body that the people have elected, and that would be Congress. If Congress steps in, that, of course, supersedes any state laws for interstate commerce, but Congress hasn't here, so now states are adopting these laws like California, Massachusetts, etc.
Many industry watchers now expect a bigger push for Congress to get involved and create a federal law rather than have a patchwork of state laws. Hopefully a weekend of warmer temperatures results in more planters rolling. Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire joins us with a look ahead to this week.
And it was a warm Mother's Day weekend. Some of us even having to dodge showers and thunderstorms. But as we head on into the start of this week here to kick off here the mid portion of May, we're going to be watching this massive ridge, this massive upper level pattern building across the western half here of the U.S. And that's going to allow temperatures to skyrocket here across the western half of the country, including the Plain States. And we'll be watching a cooler trend trying to develop a little bit up around the Great Lakes region and across the Northeast, as we'll get a brief trough trying to develop off to the north and eastern states here, and that'll be with us as we go throughout at least the mid portion here of May. Check out our temperatures for this afternoon. We're going to see those high temperatures, very pleasant across much of the country, but notice out west, Portland 89 degrees, 85 over into Seattle, and nearing 100 into Phoenix. And we just love this picture. Just look at these faces. Lots of smiles there, sharing a tractor cab during planting season. This picture from Joe in West Point, Nebraska. Joe says they'll have them taught in no time. Looks like a great day of making memories. I'll have more on your AgDay forecast in just a few.
So how did markets fare following Friday's big reports? We'll talk about that and what to expect next coming up in analysis. And later, meet a woman dedicating her life to restoring agricultural production on war-torn lands. And she's the winner of the World Food Prize in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Lamar's Toy Store, the largest and most diversified farm toy store in the U.S. They have new and old and do restorations and customizations too. You need to see it to believe it. Visit lamarstoystore.com or call us at 712-546-4305.
A new report looking at credit conditions in several ag states shows farm real estate values are continuing to increase. The latest report from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City shows that credit stress is low. Economists reporting farm income moderated due to a slight pullback in commodity prices during the first quarter, and that slowed the pace of loan repayments a bit, which you can see on this chart. But they say improvement in farm finances and credit conditions have steadied, and they say increased production costs have led many producers to cut costs or request credit line increases. Following expectations of a record crop from USDA, grains had a tough day on Friday. Let's get more details and market reaction from Michelle Rook in today's Markets Now.
Mixed closes in the grains on Friday after the WSDA report. John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing is joining us. And John, let's talk about some of the reaction to the report. First of all, wheat was kind of the bullish surprise on the winter wheat side of things, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Every USDA report seems to give us something in one way or another. And this week it was, or this month's report wound up being that those wheat totals missing that winter wheat crop by 100 million bushels below expectations. The overall wheat crop down by 140 million bushels below expectations. As obviously the dry weather has definitely come into play here. And you had a market that was heavily shorted based on just maybe the headlines and the weather that was coming out there. And it just was set up for a recovery explosion higher in those wheat prices. That limited some of the pressure in the corn market overall today. But then soybean numbers, obviously, too, just look very, very heavy compared to where we were just a few weeks ago.
I was going to say that was a very bearish corn number, 805 million bushels on ending stocks over last year, but corn did absorb it well. Was it just because of wheat or also because we had kind of priced some of that in going in?
I think we had a lot of that priced in. I mean, this has been just a real negative dive in the market prices here. So, barring any numbers that were extreme, and we kind of still got those on the new crop side, I think everything was kind of calculated in. I mean, we still got a very good cash market. You look at the national cash basis, it's still running well above 5-year averages. And that's maybe why we saw some opportunity in that July contract to kind of lift up and maybe support this market. So that's still going to be the key going forward. Not sure if the USDA is cutting demand, though, in the long run.
Does December new crop have to go down farther, though, to price this big ending stocks number in?
I think that's a possibility. The charts obviously closed very negatively today. We'll have to see. I mean, we're looking at a perfect crop scenario on the 12th of May. So really there's not a lot of premium in this market at all for any risk whatsoever. Right. Now, there's not a lot to be put in there at this time frame, but at least at this stage it looks like prices have an easier chance to work lower given that large supply number that's been put out there for us.
And just finally, soybean ending stocks up 130 million bushels over last year. How much lower do we have to go to price that in?
Again, those charts close very negatively on both old and new crops. So it just makes us look a little more concerned that we got another drop here to go find some legs, especially with that big South American supply coming.
Thanks so much for joining us. John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing. More AgDay coming up.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Let's check out our precipitation for this week, and we're going to continue to monitor parts of the northern plains and parts of the far southern plains. Check out Texas, how we get that bright banding colors down there. It's going to mean a lot of moisture chances with showers and thunderstorms are going to be in and out. We could be looking at around 3 to 6 inches of water for parts of Texas. Meanwhile, though, we continue to struggle with the rainfall across the southern plains, or at least the south central parts of the plains, that is. It does look like Nebraska will pick up a few inches of rain, but as far as Kansas is concerned, especially the western half of Kansas, where we still have that exceptional drought, it does look like, unfortunately, that the rain chances are going to be few and far between here as we go throughout this mid portion here of May. Looking at our precipitation outlook as we dive on into this mid-month, and you'll notice the browns here, that's the drier air, the drier chance here of precipitation up across the northern half of the plains. Meanwhile, we're going to see the wet pattern staying right across the southern half here of the country, and it looks like we're going to carry over this pattern right on into Memorial Weekend as we get ready to close out the month of May. Check out our jet stream again. I showed this during Crop Watch. We're going to see this big upper level ridge building across the western half of the U.S. That's going to mean the heat is on, and when you get a ridge that's that strong, that means shower and thunderstorm chances become few and far between. Likely we're going to see a few moisture chances again well down to the south, as well as up along the North England coastline there, as we're going to have a trough beginning to dive on in. That'll keep temperatures around the Great Lakes and across the northeastern states there a little bit cooler as we head on into the end of this upcoming week. Let's check out our temperatures for today here across the country this afternoon, and look out west again. That's where the heat is really building. 80s, maybe even a run at 90 degrees for parts of Washington and Oregon there. Notice Phoenix reaching that triple-digit mark. That's the look around the country. Now let's take a look here at AgDay Select Cities. Going over to Dallas, Texas, a few scattered showers and thunderstorms around, high 85 degrees. Going into South Bend, Indiana, mostly sunny, high 70 degrees. And going up into Montana, high 64 degrees under partly cloudy skies.
It's not just new tractors getting all of the attention at auction. Machinery Pete joins us next with the price of nostalgia. And later, meet the woman dedicating her life to restoring war-torn lands to farming and agricultural production. And now she's being honored for her efforts. Details in the country. And May is Beef Month, and what better way to celebrate livestock producers than to hold a sweepstakes? Zoetis and Farm Journal want to recognize you and the big impact you have on feeding our communities. The Zoetis Freedom Recognition Sweepstakes by Farm Journal runs through Saturday, May 27th. You can register to win a special edition golf bag or the grand prize, an amazing American flag wall display that we will be giving away on air. Just scan the QR code on your screen right now and you'll be taken to the sweepstakes entry form to enter for your chance to win. Those newer used tractors are going for a lot of money right now, but what about those tractors of the past? Maybe the one you learned to drive as a kid, or one with special memories tied to it. Well, as Machinery Pete tells us, those are pretty hot too.
All right, folks, today let's talk John Deere 2640 tractors. Of course, part of the famous, iconic 40 series line that Deere made. The 2640 model was made from 1976 to 82. And this utility model, I've seen approximately 500 of them sold at auction the past 33 and a half years. Most recently, just last Thursday, on a dairy farm auction in Chilton, Wisconsin. Sale by our friends at Miller & Company Auctions and Appraisals. You can see a picture of it here. A beautiful 1978 model. Only 1,829 hours on it. Sold for $9,600. And my auctioneer friend Greg Miller told me, Pete, it was bought by a local farmer who smiled all the way home, driving it home. As he should, to get a beautiful tractor like that. Now for perspective, the last 17 months I've seen 48 2640s sold, and the average auction price $6,725. Now all this talk about John Deere 2640s did make me think of the most famous one I've ever seen sold at auction, which was just over 2 years ago, April 28th of 2021 down in Dyersville, Iowa. And this tractor was the actual 2640 used in the filming of the movie Field of Dreams, the Kevin Costner movie. Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. And this was the tractor, of course, the famous scene where Kevin and his daughter plowed under his corn to make the baseball field. Now, 5 years ago, I actually went down to Dyersville and filmed a Machinery Pete YouTube video with the owner, Donnie Lansing, who bought the tractor new. And it was great. Donnie told me a lot of the cool backstory about the movie and the tractor and its history. And again, it sold at auction 2 years ago, April of 21, for $64,000. I think a sign there of how the high regard the movie Field of Dreams is held in.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
The 2023 World Food Prize laureate has been named. She is 65-year-old Heidi Kuhn. Kuhn, a mother of 4 and cancer survivor, has spent more than 25 years restoring agriculture in former war zones. After initially working with some vintners from her native California to restore grape production to demined land around the world, she and her organization, Roots of Peace, have helped establish fruit orchards as well as nut, seed, and spice production on former battlefields. In fact, Kuhn wasn't at the award ceremony last week in Washington, D.C. U.S. Ambassador and World Food Prize Foundation President Terry Branstad explaining the reason why.
Today, Heidi is actually in Azerbaijan as we speak. She's working in Azerbaijan to remove landmines, which is her Mother's Day tradition.
One of Kuhn's longest running programs is in Afghanistan, where Roots of Peace has worked for 20 years. Kuhn using her relationship with Afghan farmers to support efforts to eradicate polio They did it by offering rural families chickens or beehives as encouragement to get vaccinated. Now, the World Food Prize was created by Nobel Peace Prize laureate Dr. Norman Borlaug back in 1986. His vision, an annual prize honoring achievements in improving the quality, quantity, and availability of the world's food supply. And congratulations. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF, helping you do the biggest job on earth.